and adjustments forward and back, and for us to say that we're a day ahead and then count back. If it's around about the 12 hours, it's pretty easy to do, but a little bit more than that, sometimes it's a bit tricky.
Well, I'm super glad that you have it together, because we probably would still be sending Facebook messages about when to log on if you left it up to me. So I'm really excited. It's really great to see you. It's been a little while. I think the last time I saw you was in Orlando.
It was, yes. We met when...
Did I see you in Albuquerque?
Oh, yes, we were there.
That's where we
well. Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very busy summit, that one, though, so we were sort of toing and froing quite a lot. But I remember when you were looking at getting started, and that was quite a while ago now.
Yeah, yeah. So for those of you joining us this morning, I'm chatting with Ken Baldwin, and he's joining us from Australia. So it's evening for him, bedtime, morning for us here in the States. Ken and I met when I attended the first functional aging summit that I went to, which was 2016 in Mesa, Arizona. And so much has happened in my fitness career since that first summit. It really was a life-changing event for me. I went to that event knowing that in my soul, that identifying the older population was what I needed to do when I opened my gym, but really had zero idea how to go about it. And Dr. Dan and Dr. Cody have been so instrumental in my success here at Evolution Fitness and Wellness. And when I met you, Ken, you were so gracious, and it really kind of comforting to me, because you just kept saying to me, just take it a day at a time. It's going to be good. And you're right about that. So
there's some changing situations as we move, but we should never be scared about approaching those, because fear is where we grow most, and it's important to be confident and surround ourselves with the right people, and then things will happen from there. And you're definitely proof of that, because you've come forward in leaps and bounds and have an amazing, successful studio now and doing really well.
I do. It's really great, even though we're kind of in this weird transition time right now. But before we get into just chatting a little bit more, Ken, would you give my audience a little bit of background about kind of how you got started? You've been a lifelong fitness guy.
I have, yes. I spent 20 years in the military as a physical training instructor, which is similar to your drill sergeant. So I was responsible for getting the troops fit to go on deployment, and worked very closely as a rehab consultant with the doctors and the physical therapists, and looked at things on timelines and getting people fit from there. And I transitioned out of that into the fitness industry, teaching group fitness and classes, and became a personal trainer, and furthered my education and training along those lines to a studio operator. My main specialty was aquatic rehabilitation and aquarobics. So I've always had the area of the active aging, and the last sort of 10 years, that's really been my focus, and very passionate about it. And probably 95% of my personal clients are over the age of 60. And I'm in the aging demographic myself as a baby boomer, and noticed my body changing as well, from really physical stuff and injuries and so on and so forth, and having to deal with that, and looked at sharing my knowledge and my journey with all of my clients, and that's pretty much it.
So let's just talk about that one thing that you said about realizing how the body is changing as you get older. Tell me from your perspective, as somebody that's been in really good physical condition through your career, how did you start noticing the changes as you are getting older?
So when I started to hit 50, my passion for exercise was dwindling a little bit. I wasn't as competitive or as active as I wanted to be, and the aches and pains were starting to show. I had a full hip resurface and knee problems and ankle issues and back and shoulder issues that were continually being worked on through my days in the military, and it just became harder and harder to recover, and found that I had to change my routine and I had to focus far more on my recovery. And I think the biggest thing was the denial from an age perspective, and realizing that I couldn't do what I used to do, or understanding that I could, but in a different way and slower, as long as I focus more on my recovery. So that really was an aha moment from me as I transitioned and moved forward in what I was doing.
Yeah, I kind of had that same thing. So I'll be 55 in July. And I know when I really started getting into fitness back in my mid 40s is really when I embraced it. I was doing things like plyo box jumps, and, I was running hard sprints in the parking lot and that kind of thing. And I've noticed that my body just does not like it as much. And what I try to impart with my clients is we can still train hard, if you will, but just a different type of training, right?
Absolutely. I think the research has come a long way in the last 10 years, especially as well, because it comes from a doctor's perspective as well, where they've said, oh, you're getting old, go and sit down and take it easy and don't do anything. You've had a good life. And it's starting to turn around to say that we need to be active now. We need to be physically doing stuff. And it's also been an education process for trainers, because we can really, really push ourselves and our clients in our 20s and 30s, because the body responds far more quickly. And that's what we're used to doing. And, they go hard for the gains and so on and so forth. 30s to 40s, it's different to a degree, and it's more targeted training, because it's all about looking good and feeling good from the benefits of the exercise. But when we hit that 40 and the body starts to slow down, we need to change our process. And when we really hit the 50s, it's about conservation and looking at what we can do and looking at longevity beyond what we're currently doing. So that's a big education process, not only for us as doing our training, but also for the trainers to understand that mindset. And the Functional Aging Institute has been critical in providing that knowledge and that research, as you know, and giving us the ability to know what to do with our clients and where to go from there.
So we were talking before we jumped on live, kind of about different areas that you focus in. And one of them that we talked about a little bit was barefoot training. And I'm interested in exploring that with you a little bit this morning, because so often in my experience, my older clients are told through doctors, or just because of the fact that they've been in a hard shoe for so long, being barefoot, walking barefoot, exercising barefoot is very difficult for them. So I'd like to explore a little bit about your experiences in barefoot training and your thoughts behind it for older adults. Can we go down that path for a moment?
Absolutely. So I was in that position probably about 5 to 7 years ago as well. And I had a look at my main resource is Dr. Emily Splickle, who is a podiatrist and a practicing podiatrist, but she's also a fitness instructor, and she's still practicing as a podiatrist, but she also works as a fitness professional. And I decided to do her barefoot training course and become a barefoot training specialist. And when I first came upon the course, I thought, okay, this is about running in bare feet and, being strong and so on and so forth. And it couldn't have been further from the truth. So her motto is barefoot strong, and training the feet to be strong so that we can do what we need to do in shoes and have a good foundation. And the reason it resonated with me is that movement is the foundation for life. And if we have a solid platform and everything works from the ground up with our feet, we have the ability to move better, to adapt to situations. And if we move better, we feel better, and we are stronger as we move. And like yourself, I experienced with some of my clients quite a bit of pushback. But I was amazed when I integrated barefoot training into all of my other programming, how far more quickly I achieved results, both from a confidence perspective, from a falls prevention perspective, from a agility and quickness and read reactivity perspective. Everything improved. But the thing that really shocked me was how quickly it happened. We're talking, and depending on the ability of the person, of over 10% in 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And it really, really comes from just doing barefoot training, from 5 to 10 minutes of basic exercise in bare feet a day. And the way that I started and try and justify it is, people of our age, if we go back to our childhood and think about how long we were in shoes compared to how long we were out of shoes. We ran on the beach, we ran through the grass, we climbed trees, we didn't worry. We only used shoes when we were going out formally, and heck, most of us sometimes couldn't even, many of us couldn't even afford shoes. So we spent so much time in our bare feet getting strong, feeling the earth, creating that connection to the earth. And why shouldn't we be doing it now as we age? Because it's far more important now to have a good foundation, to feel the ground, to be able to move in any direction, to stop ourselves from falling. And so I started looking into more research and doing more training, and the results have spoken for themselves. And all of my clients, regardless of their age, are at some stage of barefoot training and doing homework of minimum of five minutes a day in bare feet.
So tell me a little bit about how you approach somebody who is a little bit reluctant to come out of their shoes, maybe because of a recommendation. Clients that maybe are dealing with neuropathy. In my opinion, those people are really the ones that do need to get out of their shoes a little bit each day, because I know there's a very strong correlation between the surface that you're on and the receptors in your feet, right? So how do you start somebody who's maybe dealing with something like neuropathy or even arches? I hear that a lot. Like, I have a fallen arch and barefoot is very uncomfortable for me. Where do we start with somebody like that?
That's a good question. It does come down to education and knowledge and the way that you put it across from a coach's perspective. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that shortly. There is an argument here, and this is what Dr. Emily Splichal uses a lot. Is it mobility or is it stability that we're looking for? So we need both, and it is a balance. And it also comes down to whether it's a structural issue or whether it's a neural issue. So if we go to the feet, there are 20,000 proprioceptive nerve endings in the feet, and the two places in our body that we have more than anything are in our fingers for tactile, tensile, and in our feet. And it's one of our most powerful senses, feel. So we have to educate our clients to understand that for us to move better, to feel better, and to have the ability to do anything, we have to rely more on feel rather than sight. Because if you imagine a blind person, and this is the way that we do it as well, if you take away their sight, a blind person tries to sharpen their other senses to take over. And one of their strongest senses is feel, through the dog, through the cane, and so on and so forth. So before they move, they feel the ground and so on and so forth. So that comes back to when I teach, I say balance first, movement second. The other thing that you spoke about was different surfaces and vibrations. So our body and every living creature has a biorhythm or a sense of movement.
Mhm.
And we rely on how we feel that movement through vibration. And if we go to the laws of physics, it's gravity to ground reaction forces. Force applied allows us the elasticity to provide force to move, to step up, to jump. And then we go down to breaking down how we move through stepping up, through squatting, through stepping to the side, and all of those basic drills. There is a basic fear, as you say, when it comes to getting people into bare feet, especially in a gym environment, because number one, we've always been told that you should wear shoes when we're in the gym. And when we're around weights, and from an occupational health and safety perspective, that's very, very true. But if we're in a control environment, or if we're in a clear environment, it's very important that we walk as naturally as possible, which is a heel-toe action. And a shoe restricts that. So I'll come back to that more shortly. When in all of my classes, and not just Barefoot, I have one-on-ones, but I also have small group training and large group training up to about 30 people. So in a class of 30 people, we have one rule. They must try everything that we ask and come in with an open mind, or they're not allowed to do the class, because negativity creates negativity and fear, and it distracts other people in the class. So I said, I'm here to provide a safe environment for you. It needs to be trusting. This is what we're going to do. This is a breakdown of what we're going to do today. Are you comfortable with doing that? I don't enforce shoes, which is another question, because some of them do it in socks. I probably only have one or two people that have issues with their feet that they're not comfortable with. But what I do is I provide homework for them to do it in their own home, in a safe environment, on the grass or watching TV, on the carpet, because it's essential that they feel the difference between the different surfaces. And that's sort of how we get around that. There is that fear as well, because shoe and a thick shoe provides stability. And we've been taught from a podiatrist perspective, and also from a comfort perspective, that if the more solid the heel, the more stability we have.
Right.
But that's not the case, because it provides more comfort, but it locks the heel in. And our foot naturally is required to do that. And all of our movement comes from pushing through the toes and spreading the toes and grounding through the tripod of the foot. And our foot has to react this way. And if it can't, it creates issues for fall. So I'll give you an example here of a shoe. So here's a big shoe. It's got a solid heel. It's comfortable, and it's a runner, and it allows a heel-toe action with a little bit of movement through here. But it's not a good shoe for walking or for movement, because it doesn't allow the ankle to move naturally, or the foot to move naturally, or to push off, or to grab the ground. If I use a shoe that is more supple, that allows the ankle to move naturally, we can go there. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have orthotics and we shouldn't consult our podiatrist, because we have a condition called dysfunction. And what that is that occurs through our body adapting to incorrect movement over a period of time.
Yeah.
So our hips and our knees and our feet will adjust, but it creates a misalignment through the spine and through our central nervous system, and which creates the foot to do different things. So quite often collapsed arches, and I have very flat feet because I did lots of running in boots in the military and stuff like that. But through strength work and stuff, I probably only have had orthotics for about 2 years of my life, in the latter stages of my life. There are different types. So there's the shorter ones, and there's a heel cup, and there's things that. But again, this comes to a question of is it mobility or stability, and is it structural, or is it muscle and neural. So if we get the feet feeling the right way and we give it enough support for mobility and stability, which comes from natural barefoot training, we can strengthen the feet to be barefoot strong with a good contact point on the ground, and that allows us to do proper work, because it only takes 1 inch or less than half an inch for us when we're walking on an unnatural path for us to roll the foot. And if our shoe is too thick and our foot can't feel the ground, if it does that and our foot doesn't have the strength or the ability to readjust, we are going to fall over and injure ourselves. And that's where the majority of injuries come from, because uneven ground or lack of confidence in movements and on long strides and gait control. So that's all part of the barefoot training that we do.
It's interesting because I, probably 3 years ago, I was somebody who was wearing a thicker soled shoe. And I've gone through thousands of dollars in finding a shoe, because I'm standing on a concrete floor with a rubber, surface. That's what we train on. And when you do that for 8-9 hours a day, you really feel it up through the rest of your body. So I started looking for a zero drop shoe, and one that I could really splay my toes. And the ones that I'm really in love with right now is the Ultra brand, because the toe box is made exactly like the shape of my foot. So I can really get that big toe, little toe, heel contact. And I am amazed at the difference it's made in all of my joints up, right? I don't have the knee pain that I was dealing with as much. My hips aren't as tight and sore. And I really do attribute that to the ability to be able to really flex and move my foot and have that full. I'm so visual, or I'm so like hand dominant when I speak. I'm like looking and going, okay, Jackie, put your hands down. But you get my point, right? Since I made that change of going, and I see my clients that are coming in. Are you familiar with the Hoka brand, Hoka
Yes.
brand of shoe? So they're very thick and they're high. And I often worry about clients that are in those, because you can't move quickly in that type of shoe if you don't have that reaction time, like you said, in the ankle, and you're doing a lateral movement. To roll that ankle to the outside and have a pretty sustained injury is pretty easy.
Absolutely.
In that thick shoe. Yeah.
If we go back to the fundamentals of walking and gait, we always take long steps. Now, as we age, we shorten our gait, which makes it very, very difficult to walk. And what happens is we lose our peripheral vision, our posture sags forward, and we're focused and looking directly down at the ground. And what it comes with what we call, and it's the Florida shuffle, or the tennis shoe shuffle. It's that really short step where they sag and drag the feet, because they don't have the ability to move through the foot and take longer steps, because they're worried about their balance, and then they start ending up with their shoulders forward and ending up with the walking frames. If we have strong feet where we have the ability to roll and the ability to move forward and take the weight into the toes, that creates the harnessing of the energy to move us forward, to step us up and step us down, to change direction from side to side. And just doing simple homework with these exercises in bare feet, the clients, all of my clients, are just absolutely amazed, and it's so easy to do. It also creates the neural patterning in the brain and the cognitive understanding and response. Because what happens is, as we age, our brain can only prioritize so many thought processes. And again, if we stick with our dysfunction, the brain looks for shortcuts and it puts everything aside. But if we establish a good foundation of movement, we have a better read and reactivity time, and the brain is able to understand and say, oh, that doesn't feel right. I can quickly adjust it, and I can go back to where I'm comfortable and in balance.
Ken, with the amount of people that you've trained, older adults, have you worked with people that have foot fusions, like in the ankle or toes where they're fused. So obviously we don't have as much movement in that joint. And if you have, like, how do you help them understand how barefoot training can work for them despite the fact that there's fusion there?
There are a couple of things as well, because again, stability comes through joint strength and then mobility. Now, for those people that have fusions, and I get this as well, I've got several of my older ladies who have had the big toe removed, or it's curled under, or they have gout in their toes and they don't have the ability to sort of move forward in that. The easiest way around it is we get them to stand up first, nice and tall, and I get them to rock forward onto their toes and rock forward back onto their heels. So forward and back, forward and back. And ask them the simple question, where are you more stable? Where do you feel more balance? Now, nobody's ever answered on my heels with my toes off the ground, because we physically need to grab the ground and spread our feet. So it's about giving them the ability to have strength to do that. So it does take a bit of work, but it also comes with confidence and mindset. So we can't change structure, and this is where orthotics can come in, and good podiatrists will say, okay, you need assistance in structure, so I'll give you this arch support so that you can do these movements. As long as it doesn't take away the mechanics of the rest of the body and put something else out, that's exactly the way it should be. So that's where we start. We look at assisting. So a lot of my exercises and people that have difficulty or have a fear will start with a piece of dowel, a broomstick, and this is the homework that I give them as well, or use a wall, a standing single leg, and giving a good balanced position. And once they have the confidence and they start to relate to a position of feel rather than sight, their body starts to understand it more as well. It does take more time, obviously, but it can be done. The adjustments aren't as quick or as much, but it definitely does make a huge difference.
Do you work with vibration plates at all?
Absolutely. I do have the Naboso inner soles in my aqua shoes, especially because a lot of the facilities that I work at, they don't have a mat by poolside, so I'm jumping on concrete when I'm demonstrating. As soon as I put them into my shoes, I had no lower back pain, I had no knee pain, and I was teaching, 10 classes a week.
Let's talk about that. What is that for those folks that don't know what Naboso is?
Naboso is a proprioceptive inner sole at different thicknesses. It's like I don't know whether you have them there, but they were Swedish sandals that had masseur sandals that had the little nibs in them.
Yes.
So they're micro-soled, but they're specifically spaced apart in a way, and the technology of the hardness of them allow the nerve endings in the feet to feel and react and respond, and they're absolutely fantastic. And there are different thicknesses, and there's been a lot of science and research done with them, and they make a huge difference, and they've had lots of great results with gait and with movement and with those who have neural difficulties. I've worked with power plate for many, many years as well from a vibration perspective. It's important that you do get one that has the right frequency like power plate and known brands, because a lot of the cheap ones will just throw your body out, and it won't allow the vibration or the feel or the nerve receptors of the body to feel correctly. But once again, from a recovery perspective, it loosens up those nerve endings. It's fantastic. From applying pressure to to the joints and the nerve muscle endings, you get greater mobility far more quickly. And the technology behind it and the research behind it is based on zero gravity. So what happens when we're in zero gravity is our muscles and our bones break down, and they actually looked at vibration training to create a force or a gravity, and the right frequencies actually helped astronauts in space maintain bone density and muscle strength. And I'm an absolute advocate of it. They're amazing pieces of equipment and really, really good, and they make it a fantastic difference to rehabilitation, to recovery, not weight loss, because that's what they were first touted as. So all of these vibrations aren't going to help with weight loss, but they will help with bone density, with strength and rehabilitation.
So I don't have a power plate in my gym. I have a machine that was produced in Canada. It's called the Vibra Pro. And it has the up and down platform, but it also has an oscillating one. And that's the one that I recommend the clients use the most to be able to, and exactly like you said, right? It's a great recovery tool. So I actually recommend clients jump on it before they start their program, because it's a nice little warm up, kind of gets your brain in tune with what your feet are doing. And then it's really a great cool down as well. So my clients that actually heed my advice and use it do really, really well. But it does sit empty a lot more. So I'm hoping people that are watching this today will take the advice and jump on and use it some more. I wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It is a fantastic tool, but if you're lying on it in a specific way, it tingles quite a bit and will make your nose itchy, and it's not a pleasant feeling sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's not. I wanted to ask you about the types of homework exercises. Can you give us a few examples of some of the things that you suggest to your clients to practice just the feel of, or the start of barefoot training?
Absolutely. So a lot of the testing that I do when I start with clients is based on the functional aging certification. So we look at the get up and go from an agility perspective, and we look at the chair stand. The other ones that I look at predominantly is the standing balance. So I will have all of my clients stand, if possible, on one leg. Try and keep the leg that is not grounded at hip height. Doesn't matter, but that's ideal. The reason being is it requires more glute strength to do that. So that gives me an idea where the muscle imbalances are. So we will do a 10 to 15 second barefoot test on both legs, because there's always a smart side and a weak side, because we always use the same side when we step off. We always use the same side when we turn, and so on and so forth. So it's important that we look at both sides to have a look at that. And ideal time-wise is around about 15 seconds, regardless of your age. So if you can do that unassisted for 15 seconds, that tells us that you have a good percentage of core strength, that you have a confidence in the ability to stand, you have a little bit of decent posture, and you're able to control yourself from falling to a certain degree, and that with the other ones. So that's homework that we give, and again, depending on their other conditions, we would start them with the broom, and as I said, 5 to 10 minutes a day. We also just step forward and step back, step behind, step to the side, and we will also do a high knee step over, high knee step back, because the other thing that we lose as we age quite quickly is depth perception. It's quite funny here, and it's not taught a lot, and it really should be. The first thing we lose as we age in our mid-40s is our eyesight. And so over the age of 45, there's a very high percentage of us that need glasses. Yet when we turn 60, the thing that we try to rely on most is our sight. And that's very, very difficult. So the big thing with all of my clients is teaching them to feel rather than to see, because if they lose their sight, but they can't trick their brain, because the brain understands feeling and balance more than it understands seeing where they're going. So if they can feel where they're going, it's better. So we do the standing balance, we do the walking in bare feet, we do like a ballerina step up where they balance on their toes and just come up and hold and come down, and basic movements. So my class is based around breathing and body awareness, as well as depth perception, and over time we'll add different steps in, not as a step class, but to get them to understand stepping up and stepping down and stepping over, because they're the things they need in everyday life.
For sure.
So all of their homework is based on things that are going to help them do everyday tasks and create that patterning in the brain that gives them a solid foundation, stepping to the side. And you need to do it in bare feet to feel, and in a safe environment, which is on the carpet at home or on the grass in the backyard, or if you're close to a beach, feel the sand under your toes. It's amazing.
It is amazing. I have a lady that I train. I haven't seen her now because she's in an independent living facility that's locked down and quarantined. So I only get to wave from the balcony when I drive by. But when I took her out of her shoes, so she has a very long, narrow foot, but she has developed a toe, her big toe on her right foot actually comes forward and then hooks inward at the joint. And when I first started training with her, she was in her shoes all the time, and she would cram her foot into a very narrow shoe. And I started to say, let's take you out of your shoes. We're in your home. It's on carpet. It's a safe environment. Let's not wear shoes today and see how we do. And when we started doing all of those movements that you just talked about, forward movement, back movement, her confidence level really came up, because she could actually, even though that toe is disfigured and disjointed, she could still feel the other digits a lot more. And it really started improving her balance. And as you said, the sight starts to go. So she's kind of dealing with a macular degeneration in her right eye pretty significantly. And of course, she's got hearing aids. So all of those things that we count on to help us stay upright or move and not fall, she's disadvantaged in those areas. And so that field training has been significant for her.
With shoes as well, as you mentioned, it jams the feet in. So we have the one contact point, and if the toe is bent around, that's only going to create a curling up as well, which doesn't give us a good stability. So I have really big bunions on both of my feet, and that creates my toes not to be as stable as they should be. But we are able to adapt if we keep our feet strong. And I've found the barefoot training has enabled me to be able to jump better, to step better, and to balance better because of that.
That's 20 years of running in boots, Ken. That's where those bunions came from.
Definitely.
Yeah. So tell me, I want to respect that it's bedtime for you. So if you were going to give two of your favorite pieces of fitness advice for older adults, what would they be? And I know that's a tough question.
Balance and movement are the foundation of life. If we move better, we feel more confident, and it takes a lot of the stress away from everything else that we do. The other thing is, with this age group, one of the biggest things that we encounter is fear. Now, with my military training, I'm quite blunt with a lot of my people, and I said, look, and you'll see it all of the time. We can't face our fear if we run away from it. And it's all about being on that journey with them and helping them embrace it little bit by little bit by little bit. Unfortunately, we can't do it now because of COVID, but I always start with holding hands and just getting them to move forward and back. And even assisting them in and out of the chair with their eyes closed, because they have that confidence blanket of you, that contact with this, the ability to get up and get down and move. And play a little game with it, make them feel happy. Don't make them force them to do anything that they don't want to do. But they, the other thing, as Dan and Cody say, they never really know what they can't do because they're too frightened to do it. As good coaches and trainers, we have the ability to take them to another level confidently and gently push them in the right direction and saying, look, there are going to be things that they don't want to do, but if they don't do them, the fear will always be there. And it's that subtleness and that ability of good coaches to go that step further. I'm here for you. This is what we're going to do. Try it on your own. Safety always comes first. Balance first, movement second. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. The other thing is, come with an open mind. You are never, ever too old. I remember the first Mark Middleton's talk at the first functional aging one that we went to, and he was talking about centenarians. And he said, we studied them all to try and find out, what was their secret to life. Some of them drank whiskey and smoked. Some of them were vegetarians. Some of them didn't do a day of exercise in their life until they were in their 90s. There was only one key thing. None of them were scared to die. And the big thing is the what if. I want to do this. What if I haven't done this? How weak or unfulfilling would my life be? So it's all about live today for today, embrace everybody around you, try things, because variety is the spice and the key to life. So really, really important. And seek out that help. You're never alone. There's always somebody there to talk to, have a coffee with. We know it's hard at the moment, but we are mammals. We require nurturing. We require other people's love and care, even if it's just having a cup of coffee and talking about things. As we age, we need it more than when we were younger. And that creates confidence, that creates connection, and that is the key to our life.
Absolutely. So for those watching this, whether you're joining us live or you watch the recording later, Mark Middleton is the CEO of Growing Boulder. And his company, based in Winter Park, Florida, is very focused on changing how people look at aging. His entire focus, everything that he promotes through his speaking engagements, his Facebook stuff, everything is about living your best life as you get older. Like, it's not the time to stop living, it's the time to really enjoy and start living. And I tell my clients all the time, like, we've spent so much time raising our family and nurturing our home and, really taking care of the kids and probably for a lot of us focused on a career. And then retirement comes and and it could be, maybe that's what you want to do is sit in the rocking chair. I don't recommend that. I actually think it should be the time for exploration and doing those bucket list things, if you will, everything that you dreamt about doing when you were younger and couldn't because you were busy developing your career and raising your family. So no truer words were spoken than what Mark says.
I think another friend of mine, Peter Twist, who's a strength and conditioning coach, one of the best in the world, and is an ice hockey specialist, and is actually an Olympic coach for many of the Chinese teams that if and when we have our next Olympics. Peter's got a saying, and I live my life by it, and I remind my clients about it all the time, and he says, what time is it? The time is now. Don't worry about looking at your watch. Don't worry about, we can't change the past. Yeah. We can only change what we're doing now to affect what we do in the future. What time is it? The time is now. It's your life. It's your decision. The choices you make today give you a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. So Ken, one of our viewers today, Janet, said she has done much better exercising at home with the lessons that we've provided her because she's always barefoot. She definitely feels more secure. So that's awesome to hear, Janet. And then she also commented, so true, fear since my injury. Janet took a pretty good fall and had a pretty severe break in her arm that took a long time to heal. So she said it is, she is fearful in some of the movements now because that was such a significant injury. So even, it might be kind of dialing in the brain even when you really don't think about it. But yeah, thanks for sharing those comments, Janet. I appreciate that.
I've got a couple of testimonials on that as well with my clients. So it's not a matter of if you fall, it's a matter of when you fall and how you adapt to that. So when I started, many of my clients said to me, I can't do this because I've got sore knees, or I can't get on the ground because of my back or my ankles or my knees. And we do teach how to get on and off the ground, and we do that as part of our classes every 4 to 6 weeks so that they remember, because 89% of our falls happen either in the home or just that little skip trip as we're walking on uneven ground.
Right.
And so again, using my blunt terminology, I say, okay, so you slip and fall at the home when you're going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Who's going to get you up if you're not? You're in a situation where you're panicky, you're in a small space, you're on the ground then. It's not a matter of if you fall, it's a matter of when. So you need to be able to get yourself off the ground and have the confidence, because quite often the lights are out because it's the middle of the night, you can't see where you're going, or if you fall, you can't see where you're falling. And it's really, really important for that. I've had several of my clients who have had falls walking on uneven footpaths and things like that. But they've come back to me and they've said, I had a fall and I sprained my wrist, but you know what? If I didn't do the training that I'd done with you, I would have broken my hip and I'd be still in hospital now. Right. So, we teach them that that falling is going to happen sooner or later, how we respond to that and how we understand it and be more confident. Our reaction time is critical. So if we have the benefit of training, the brain recognizes it before it happens, we're going to have less injuries and we're going to be smarter and live longer and more effective.
Yeah, and it's so true. It's not a matter of, if and when, and that is the whole idea behind resistance training, power training, agility training for older adults, is being able to give them the tools that they need so that when that trip may occur, when they do fall, it's not as significant, hopefully as significant of an injury as what it would be if they were doing nothing, right? And that's really, I think, where we see the bulk of the very significant injuries that lead to a hip replacement. And we know that for frail individuals that fall and have a hip replacement, their longevity after that is pretty short in a lot of cases. So we know that with all of the training that we can do, should that fall or when that fall occurs, hopefully that injury is far more diminished than it would be if they weren't doing the training. So great point.
So what we can do as well, I have 2 presentations. One is a recorded webinar with a full PowerPoint, and it's called Why It's Essential for Barefoot Training for Seniors. It's about 50 minutes. It goes a little bit more into the science and the understanding, but it also talks about the process that we have been discussing in greater detail. I also have a 30-minute webinar / video of me teaching a barefoot training class remotely for my clients that I can't see at the moment, and they log in. So I'm happy to supply you with both of those, and we can work. and we can work out how to get it to your people and your participants that have listened in on this call. So more than happy to do that.
That would be awesome. I'd love that. I'd love that. Thank you.
No problem whatsoever. And anything that we can do to keep people moving and feeling better about what they're doing, we're on the right track. Because the aging demographic, as we know, is neglected quite a bit. And if we don't help them, who else will?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Ken, I so appreciate you meeting with me today. I love that technology allows us to do this, but I'm sad that it's not going to be in Denver next weekend.
Me too. I love hiking the mountains. And thanks, Janet. Great to hear you enjoyed it as well. And hope you enjoy the webinar that we send you as well. And yes, I love Colorado. It's a fantastic place and for hiking and other things. So unfortunately going to miss it this year, but there's always next year.
There's always next year. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go, Ken, so you can get to bed tonight. And I look forward to us catching up really soon.
For sure. And if any of the participants have any questions, more than happy to touch base via email and shed any light into any questions they may have.
Awesome. I appreciate it so much. You guys take care over there in Australia, okay? And we'll talk again real soon.
We shall do. Nice to meet all of your clients online and look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Have a great evening.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.